Rockefeller. He remains one of Wall Street's great figures, despised as a monster, praised as an innovator, and universally acknowledged as one of the most powerful men in history. Welcome to the Peak Performance Channel, the place where you come to be inspired to create a more prosperous future. How many of the world's wealthiest businessmen or tech giants are alive today? There are several who have made it to the billionaire level, but the sole name at the top of the list died over a century ago. The billionaire businessman established a trillion-dollar oil empire. So in this video, we'll look at a company empire so big that no one has been able to overcome its creator despite a century of technological progress. The founder of Standard Oil Company, John Davidson Rockefeller. But before we go any further, make sure you hit that like button, smash the subscribe button, and turn on notifications so that you won't miss a single video. Also, be sure to watch our other videos. The foundations of history's most powerful oil monopoly are actually quite simple. John D. Rockefeller was born in a quiet family setting in the town of Richford, New York. He would spend his days with his 5 other siblings and mother. His father, Bill, was a huckster, a con man and a cheat who traveled across the country selling snake oil. He would spend weeks away from home and have children with other women. Then he would bring them all back home to his wife so they could all live together. John learned how to get the best deals possible and how to get the most out of every penny he got. His family moved around a lot, so John has been living this nomadic lifestyle since he was 3 years old. John helped his mother by raising turkeys or doing work for neighbors. When he moved to Cleveland, Ohio in 1854, he had the chance to attend a good school. But John had to drop out and work as a bookkeeper at a local produce broker less than a year later. Back in the day, he would earn 50 cents per day. Obviously, this wasn't a lot of money, so he worked for other companies to make more money. But after 2 years of working for them, his bosses refused to give him a raise. He was not happy with this, so he started his own produce brokerage. John was able to get a loan of $4,000. He used this money to start trading hay, grain, and meat. In his first year, he made sales totaling $500,000. Even though he only received a small commission from these sales, this was still a huge success. Every bank in Cleveland was begging John to borrow money, and he was barely 18 years old. Something happened in 1859 that changed his life forever. Just 100 miles east of Cleveland, the first American oil well had been discovered. This marked the beginning of the Pennsylvania oil rush, and within a year, 4,500 barrels of oil would be produced. At that time, oil wasn't as valuable as it is today. There were no gasoline cars, but people could still turn oil into kerosene to use in lamps. John realized that he could make more money if he refined the oil instead of drilling for it. He knew that this business was risky, though, because many people had gone bankrupt trying to find oil. John let other people find oil, and then he would buy it from them. He had to wait until 1863 for the government to build a rail line connecting the Pennsylvania oil fields to Cleveland. But when that line was built, John was ready with a long line of partners and banks ready to back him up. He also assembled a team of chemists and engineers who refined the process and found different uses for the byproducts of refining petroleum. This made his refinery very successful and valuable. In fact, within 2 years, it was worth over $70,000. But John wasn't done yet. By 1865, there were only 26 refineries in Cleveland. But within 5 years, John had acquired all but 4 of them. John's oil business was getting too big to handle as a partnership. So in 1870, he incorporated Standard Oil of Ohio. To convince the few remaining competitors in Cleveland, John would simply invite them over and show them his books, revealing that he could operate at a loss far longer than they could stay solvent. John offered to give his competitors jobs in his own company in exchange for a good buyout price. He did this so he could control the brightest minds in the industry. Not everyone gave up right away. It took time, but John slowly eroded the price of oil and kerosene until his competitors couldn't afford to stay in business. By 1880, he had acquired refineries across the northeastern U.S. and was refining over 90% of the entire country's oil production. He was so powerful that he would invite the owners of big rail companies and negotiate rebates for using their trains. But this practice of negotiating backroom deals got the business world mad. At the time, and still kind of today, most industrial goods were transported by rail, and many big industrialists got worried that John's abuse of transportation rebates could result in similar monopolization in their industries. Hey, here's a quick reminder before we continue. Make sure you smash that like button and hit the subscribe and notification buttons if you haven't already done so, as it means that YouTube sends you more of these kinds of videos and it helps our channel. Okay, let's get back to the video. Over the next decade, businessmen, politicians, and the media became more and more angry with Standard Oil. Legislators in Ohio began creating laws to bring down Rockefeller, but he was one step ahead. In 1882, he reincorporated his company in New Jersey as the Standard Oil Trust. The trust held stakes in over 40 local companies. Then, to show off his success, John built an impressive headquarters for his company on Broadway. This moment was Rockefeller's high point with Standard Oil. At this time, he controlled 20,000 oil wells, 4,000 miles of pipelines, and over 100,000 employees. However, his grip on the oil industry was loosening. New oil deposits had been discovered in Russia and Asia that were being developed by the Rothschild family. Worse yet, in 1890, the federal government passed the Sherman Antitrust Act, which gave politicians the power to go after Standard Oil Trust itself. The government found it difficult to investigate all the companies because of their complex legal structure. That's why it took them until 1911 to break up Standard Oil. John Rockefeller had already made a lot of money by that point and wasn't actively managing the company anymore. In the last 20 years of the company's existence, it paid out over $500 million in dividends. So when the government finally did break up Standard Oil, most people weren't surprised. In 1911, the Supreme Court found Standard Oil guilty of anti-competitive practices and broke the company into 34 separate entities. John Rockefeller kept his stake in those companies until his death. In fact, it turns out that the breakup was the most profitable event in his life. Many of those companies merged back with one another over time. Today, most of the Standard Oil remnants are part of either ExxonMobil, Chevron, or BP. John Rockefeller's ownership of these successor companies made him the richest businessman to have ever lived. He had an estimated net worth of $400 billion. In 1916, John became the world's first billionaire. It is believed that his personal wealth accounted for 2% of the entire U.S. economy. Even today, Rockefeller is the richest person in the world. He has been for a long time, and it doesn't look like anyone is going to beat him soon. Not even Jeff Bezos himself has come close. John D. Rockefeller passed away in 1937 at the age of 97. Even though he is no longer alive, his name and legacy carry on in the lives of his family and charities forever. Thank you for being all ears throughout the entire video. If you'd like to learn more about the nature of this business, subscribe now and click on the notification bell to be updated with my latest uploads. To create is effort. To copy is genius. Albert Einstein. If you want to expand your income by engaging with some side hustles, feel free to contact me so we'll get things moving right away. Remember, if you want to change your life, let's make a change together. You need to make a change.